It all started on a crisp Sunday morning, the kind where the sun's rays filtered through the trees, creating soft patterns on the ground. I was meeting my sister, Mia, for brunch at one of our favorite spots downtown. The place was busy, bustling with laughter, conversations, and the clinking of cutlery. Mia was late, as usual. She had a knack for making grand entrances, a trait I had always found a bit irritating, but I had learned to accept it. Over the years, I had grown accustomed to her playful teasing and her tendency to throw in a jab or two whenever she could. As the oldest, I had always taken on the responsibility of setting an example, but Mia never made that easy for me. She was brash, confident, and a little too comfortable with making fun of me for my more serious demeanor. When she arrived, she breezed in with her usual energy, smiling brightly as she slid into the seat across from me. "Sorry I'm late," she said casually, brushing her hair out of her face as if we hadn't been texting about meeting at exactly this time all week. "I had to take care of some business." I raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. I was used to her not being entirely transparent about her schedule, or anything for that matter. She was the kind of person who kept things close to her chest, which was fine by me. I had no problem with her living her life the way she chose, even if that meant keeping a few secrets from the rest of us. Mia ordered a latte as soon as the waiter arrived, and I made small talk while we waited for our food. It wasn't long before the conversation shifted to my work. I had just been promoted at the firm I had been working at for the past few years, and it was a big deal. I had worked hard to get there, late nights, early mornings, countless presentations, and endless meetings. I had earned the position, and I was proud of it. But Mia, always the free spirit, didn't really get the whole corporate world thing. She had a more creative job, one that allowed her to travel and explore, and I could tell by the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about it that it gave her a sense of freedom I didn't quite have. I was happy for her, but she wasn't shy about making fun of me for my structured, predictable life. "So, how's the corporate grind going?" she asked with a smirk, clearly poking fun at me. "I bet you're living the dream, huh? Sipping coffee in meetings and telling people what to do." She took a dramatic sip of her own latte, as if emphasizing her own idea of a dream job. I laughed, trying to shrug it off. "It's not as glamorous as you think, Mia. But it's fulfilling." I said this with all the sincerity I could muster, though part of me felt defensive. Mia had always been the one who mocked the corporate world, calling it suffocating and soul-crushing. "Well, as long as you're not completely miserable, I guess it's fine," she said dismissively, her eyes twinkling with playful sarcasm. "But I bet you'd rather be doing something, I don't know, more creative. Like, actually enjoying life." There it was again, the subtle jab, the dig at my choice of career. Mia loved to needle me about my ambition, as if having goals was something to be ashamed of. As much as I tried to ignore it, I couldn't help but feel a little hurt. The truth was, Mia had always been the wild one, the one who marched to the beat of her own drum, while I was more of a planner, a thinker. "Maybe," I said carefully, my voice steady, "but I don't think it's wrong to have a job that challenges you. I mean, you've always talked about wanting more structure in your life, right?" Mia looked at me for a moment, her usual cocky grin faltering just slightly. She rolled her eyes but didn't say anything in response. I had never been able to get her to admit that she sometimes craved stability, just like anyone else. Our food arrived, and I focused on the eggs Benedict in front of me, hoping the conversation would shift. But Mia wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her eyes glinting with mischief. "So," she began, her voice suddenly a little more serious, "how much are you making these days? Must be good money, huh? With that big promotion." She raised an eyebrow, waiting for my response. I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. It wasn't that I minded talking about money, it was just that I wasn't used to Mia asking these types of questions. She had always been the one to make light of serious topics, especially anything related to money or success. But today, something felt different. "I'm doing all right," I said cautiously. "It's enough to live comfortably." I didn't give her the exact number, but I was sure she could guess. She knew I had been putting in long hours, and it wasn't exactly a secret that the promotion came with a significant pay bump. She nodded as if satisfied, but there was something in her expression that I couldn't quite place. She continued, "I always thought you'd end up in a job you hate, but it seems like you actually like this one." She said this with the same sarcastic tone she always used, but I could hear the faintest trace of something else in her voice. It was almost as if she was impressed. But before I could analyze her words too much, she added, "Well, at least one of us is doing well. You'll be able to take care of the family when things go south for me." She laughed as if it was a joke, but I couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. There was something uncomfortable in the way she said it, something that made me wonder if Mia had underestimated me, or worse, if she had no idea just how much she might need me in the near future. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the tension in the air. Maybe. But I'd rather we all be doing well, Mia. I smiled, hoping to change the mood. But Mia was already moving on to the next topic. The rest of the brunch passed in a blur of idle chatter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. I left that day with the lingering sense that Mia wasn't as carefree as she liked to pretend. And that perhaps, just perhaps, there was more to this brunch than she was letting on. The following week, things between Mia and me felt a little off. It wasn't that we were fighting, but there was an unspoken tension that neither of us seemed willing to acknowledge. We carried on with our usual banter, but the casual teasing that had once felt lighthearted now felt heavier, as though there was a hidden layer of resentment simmering just below the surface. I tried to push it out of my mind, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something I wasn't prepared for. One afternoon, I was working late at the office when I received an unexpected email. It was from HR, but it wasn't about anything specific to me. Instead, it was a notification about a new employee, Mia Anderson. My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't believe it. Was this a mistake? I clicked on the email, and as I scanned the details, I saw her name again. Mia was applying for a job at my company. But why? Why would she want to work here? And more importantly, why hadn't she mentioned it to me? I thought back to brunch. Had she been talking about her business, not as a vague reference to her life, but as a prelude to applying for a position at my firm? It didn't make sense. Mia had always been the one to mock the corporate world, to dismiss the idea of selling out. She'd constantly told me how much she valued her freedom, how she would never want to be tied down by a desk job. So, why was she applying here now? I forwarded the email to myself and tried to put it out of my mind, but I couldn't concentrate. All I could think about was Mia's reaction when she found out that I was the one who would be signing her paycheck. Would she be furious? Would she feel embarrassed? Or worse, would she mock me for being part of the system while she, ironically, joined it? The next day, I decided I needed answers. I couldn't let this mystery linger any longer, especially with how strange things had been between us lately. I called Mia and asked if we could meet for coffee. She hesitated but agreed, and we arranged to meet later that afternoon. I tried to act casual, but I couldn't help but feel nervous. What was I going to say to her? How would I approach this topic without making it seem like I was interrogating her? It wasn't just the job itself that bothered me, it was the fact that she hadn't been open about it, hadn't even given me a heads up. When we met, she looked as carefree as always, but there was something about her demeanor that made me suspicious. She didn't seem nervous or guilty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something I didn't. We exchanged pleasantries, and after a few minutes of small talk, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Mia, can I ask you something? I said, my voice a little more serious than I intended. She looked at me, her usual smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. Of course, she said, her tone light but with an edge that told me she knew where this was going. I hesitated for a moment, but I decided to go for it. Are you applying for a job at my company? The question hung in the air like an awkward weight. Mia froze, her smile faltering for just a second before she quickly recovered. Why would you think that? She replied, her voice too smooth, too rehearsed. But I wasn't buying it. I saw the HR email, I said bluntly. Your name's on it. You're applying for a position here. Mia's eyes flickered for a split second, but she quickly composed herself. Oh, that, she said nonchalantly. Yeah, I decided to apply. But it's not like I'm actually going to take the job. I just thought I'd see what you guys have to offer. You know, just to see if the corporate world is as suffocating as you say. She gave a little laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was something off about her response, and I knew she was hiding something. You didn't think to mention it to me? I asked, keeping my voice calm despite the frustration rising in my chest. We're family, Mia. You couldn't have told me you were thinking about joining the company. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly not prepared for this conversation. I didn't want to make it weird, okay? She said, looking away. I didn't want you to feel like I was just doing it because of you. I've always wanted to see what it would be like to work in a place like this, but I don't know if it's for me. I don't want you to think I'm just following your lead. I tried to process what she was saying, but something wasn't adding up. If she didn't want to follow my lead, why would she be applying to the company I worked for? Why keep it a secret? I had never known Mia to be shy about her decisions. She was bold, outspoken, and never afraid to do her own thing. You're really serious about this, aren't you? I asked, my voice quieter now. You actually want to work here? Mia looked at me for a long moment before sighing. I don't know, okay? It's just, things aren't going the way I thought they would. I need something more stable. I'm tired of always running around with no real direction. I stared at her, shocked by her words. This wasn't the Mia I knew. For as long as I could remember, she had always been the one with the free spirit, the one who didn't believe in stability, in structure. To hear her say this, openly, genuinely, was like hearing a stranger speak. Well, I guess we'll see if you get the job, I said finally, my mind racing. It was clear now that Mia wasn't just applying to satisfy some curiosity about the corporate world, there was more to it. But what? The following week, Mia's application process at the company moved faster than I could have ever anticipated. I received an internal memo notifying me that she had been shortlisted for an interview for a position in the marketing department. My stomach churned when I saw her name on the list again. This was getting too real, too fast. Part of me was excited for her, in a way. She had always said she wanted to find something more stable, and I had to admit, the marketing department could be a good fit for her creativity. But the other part of me, the part that didn't want to mix business and family, couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. I didn't want to be the one who had to be the bridge between Mia and the rest of the team, especially with the awkwardness already simmering between us. I'd always prided myself on being professional and impartial at work, and now that Mia was involved, it seemed like everything would change. As someone who had risen through the ranks by sheer merit and hard work, I wasn't sure how to approach this new dynamic. Should I let her fend for herself and keep things strictly professional? Or should I offer my guidance and risk her thinking I was trying to control the situation? The next day, I found myself walking into the office, the weight of the situation hanging over me like a dark cloud. The team was buzzing with excitement about Mia's upcoming interview. The department heads had already made it clear they were interested in her, but I wasn't sure if it was because of her skills or because she was my sister. The internal politics in the office were complicated enough without the added element of family connections. Around noon, I received an email notification that Mia's interview was scheduled for that afternoon. I felt a strange mix of pride and concern for her. What if she was doing this just to prove something? What if she didn't really want the job and was just playing a game? What if she came in, charmed everyone, and took the position without fully understanding what she was getting into? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on behind her decision to apply than she was letting on. As I made my way to the conference room where the interview would take place, I tried to stay focused on my work. But the thought of Mia walking through those doors, ready to face the same team I had spent years building relationships with, made my mind race. I had no idea how I was supposed to act when she showed up. Should I pretend I didn't know her? Or should I be supportive and offer a word of encouragement? Either way, it felt wrong to be the one to guide her in this situation. The meeting room door opened, and I looked up, expecting to see the usual group of candidates. But instead, it was Mia, walking in with her usual confidence, a slight grin on her face as she scanned the room. Her eyes briefly met mine, and for a split second, I could see something like vulnerability flash across her expression before it was quickly masked with her usual playful demeanor. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice slightly higher than usual, probably in an attempt to sound more formal. "I'm Mia Anderson, and I'm here for the marketing position." Her tone was casual, but I could tell she was nervous, something about the way she held herself gave it away. I tried to remain neutral as I gave her a nod of acknowledgement, but my stomach was turning. This was my sister, sitting in front of my colleagues, asking for a job that might change everything. I had no idea what to expect from her in an interview setting. Mia was used to charming people, but this was different. This was a professional setting, and the stakes were higher than I think she realized. The interview began as it usually would for any other candidate, questions about experience, skills, and what she could bring to the table. I watched from the corner of the room as she answered each question with the same confidence she always exuded, but there was something more calculated in her responses. She wasn't just winging it like she usually did. She was playing the part. Mia had always been good at reading people, and I could tell she was tailoring her answers to what she thought they wanted to hear. I couldn't help but wonder if she was still pretending to be someone she wasn't. After what felt like an eternity, the interview came to a close. The team members nodded in approval, some offering her smiles and a few words of encouragement, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Mia had done well, too well, in fact. There was no way they wouldn't offer her the job. But the thought of Mia working here, under my watch, made me anxious. What if she didn't like the work environment? What if she couldn't handle the pressure, or worse, what if she started playing games, thinking she could get away with things just because we were family? As the room emptied and the interview concluded, Mia approached me. Her eyes were gleaming with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "How do you think it went?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. I could see the anticipation written all over her face. "I think I nailed it," she said with a sly smile. I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. "You did well," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "We'll see what happens." But in my mind, I was already preparing for what came next. I wasn't sure if I was ready for her to be part of this world I had worked so hard to build, but I knew one thing for sure: our relationship was about to change in ways I couldn't predict. Days passed, and the suspense of waiting for Mia's interview outcome began to gnaw at me. Every time I saw her, there was an unmistakable spark in her eyes, as if she was waiting for me to acknowledge something I wasn't ready to address. I avoided bringing up the interview at first. Every conversation we had seemed to steer clear of work, and I tried to focus on other topics, hoping the tension would dissipate on its own. But it didn't. It was as if the truth was slowly creeping its way to the surface, threatening to unravel everything. And then, the phone call came. I was sitting in my office late one afternoon, staring blankly at my computer screen, when I received a call from HR. It was the confirmation I had been expecting, though not the one I was truly prepared for. "Mia Anderson," the HR director said, her voice professional but with a hint of enthusiasm. "She's been selected for the position in marketing. We'd like to formally extend an offer." I heard the words but didn't process them immediately. Mia had done it. She had gotten the job. My sister was now going to be my colleague. I could feel a lump form in my throat. I wasn't sure if it was pride, anxiety, or some combination of both. Mia, the free spirit who had always laughed at the idea of office life, was now part of this world. The world I had built. The world I had fought to enter, and the world I'd worked so hard to thrive in. After the call ended, I sat there for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. I'd be working with her now, sharing an office, collaborating on projects, and interacting with her in the professional environment I had cultivated for years. Part of me wanted to reach out to her immediately and congratulate her, but another part of me hesitated. This wasn't just about her getting a job, it was about her joining a company where I held authority. Her success wasn't just hers to celebrate, it felt like something that had inadvertently involved me, as if it would change the balance between us. I decided to wait until I saw her in person. I needed time to process it, to decide how I would approach this new chapter in our relationship. That evening, I went to meet Mia at the same cafe where we had sat the week before, talking about her vague intentions to join the corporate world. The table was set for a casual chat, but I knew what was coming. I couldn't ignore the elephant in the room any longer. When Mia walked in, her smile was wide, and there was an almost electric energy surrounding her. As soon as she sat down, she didn't waste any time. "So," she said, her voice a little too chipper. "Guess what? I got the job. HR called, and I'm officially on board. How cool is that?" I nodded, forcing a smile, though my stomach twisted. "That's great, Mia. Congratulations. I'm happy for you." She leaned back in her chair, clearly waiting for some kind of reaction, some acknowledgement that I was truly thrilled about this. I couldn't help but feel a little resentful. It wasn't that I didn't want her to succeed, but everything about this felt rushed. The secrecy, the way she had kept things from me, none of it sat well with me. "You're acting a little distant," Mia observed, tilting her head and raising an eyebrow. "What's going on? Aren't you happy for me?" "I am," I said, trying to hide the unease in my voice. "It's just a lot to process. You know." Mia's smile faltered for a moment, as if she could sense the tension in my words. "Come on, don't tell me you're feeling weird about it," she said, laughing lightly. "You're acting like I've just ruined everything." I looked at her, my eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm not feeling weird about it, Mia. But don't you think it's a little strange that you kept this from me? I mean, you've always said you would never work in a corporate job, and now you're part of it. I just didn't expect it." She shrugged, her confidence now seeming a little forced. "Things change, okay? I'm not the same person I was when I was younger. Maybe I want something more stable. Maybe I'm ready to see if the corporate world isn't so bad after all. You never know until you try." I nodded, but it didn't feel like enough. There was still something I wasn't saying. something I couldn't quite get off my chest. Finally, I spoke up. Mia, I'm happy for you. I really am. But I just want you to understand something. When you come into my world, things won't always be easy. You'll have to prove yourself. It's not just about who you know. And it's definitely not about us being family. Mia looked at me, her playful demeanor faltering for a moment. I know that, okay? I'm not just relying on you to get me by. I'll prove myself. But you don't have to worry. I'm not trying to make things complicated. We stared at each other for a long moment, the air thick with tension. I could tell she wasn't fully grasping the gravity of the situation. She had always seen me as someone she could mock or tease, but now that we were in the same professional world, the dynamic was going to change. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before the lines between family and business blurred in ways neither of us could control. Just then, I could see something flicker in her eyes, a realization, perhaps, of what this job meant, of how much it would change things. But she didn't say anything. Instead, she leaned forward and smiled again. Well, I guess I'll see you at the office, huh? And with that, I knew the real challenge was just beginning.